The palace of the Aurelian Empire floated above the blue giant star like a crown made of light. Its walls were old, older than most civilizations still alive, and every stone carried the weight of laws that had never been questioned. Purity, order, bloodline. These words were carved into the very floor where the queen now stood. Queen Seraphil of Aurelian stood before the high council window, her hands clasped behind her back. From here, she could see half the capital world spinning slowly below. It was a sight meant to inspire calm and control. Today, it did neither. "Say it again," she said, her voice low and sharp. The chief advisor swallowed. "Your Majesty, the long-range scanners confirm it. Princess Elira's vessel crossed the border 3 hours ago. She is requesting formal entry under ancient royal right." The queen's fingers tightened. Elira, her daughter, exiled 15 cycles ago, declared infertile by royal decree, removed from the line of succession and erased from all public record. "That is not possible," the queen said. "She was banished. Her existence no longer concerns this empire." "There is more," the advisor said quietly. Seraphil turned. Her golden eyes locked onto him, demanding truth without patience. "Speak. The ship is not alone. There are additional life signs on board, 3 of them, juvenile. Their genetic signatures are unusual." The room went silent. The queen stared at the advisor as if he had spoken nonsense. "Explain." The science counselor stepped forward, her skin pale with stress. "The readings show royal Aurelian markers, direct lineage, but they are mixed with foreign genetic structures. Non-imperial, specifically human," the advisor finished. The word struck the room like a blade. "That is impossible," the queen said, louder now. "Elira cannot bear children, and even if she could, no Aurelian can reproduce with humans. Our biology rejects it." The science counselor lowered her head. "That is what we believed, Your Majesty." Believed. The queen felt a cold pressure form behind her eyes. Humans were recent arrivals to the galactic stage, short-lived, adaptable, emotionally chaotic. Useful allies at times, dangerous at others, but compatible. Never. "And yet," Seraphil said slowly, "you are telling me there are 3 children carrying my blood and human blood." No one answered. No one dared. The queen turned back toward the stars. Her reflection stared back at her from the glass, tall, flawless, unyielding. For centuries, the Aurelians had ruled by certainty. There were rules to life, rules to power, rules to blood. This broke all of them. "Prepare the throne chamber," she said. "Full court attendance. If my daughter believes she can walk back into this empire with a lie wrapped in flesh, she will do so under the eyes of every noble who condemned her." "Yes, Your Majesty," the council replied in unison. As they dispersed, the queen remained still. Her thoughts moved faster than space itself. Elira had always been different, too curious, too kind. She had questioned the purity laws, the ban on genetic divergence, the rigid hierarchy that kept the empire strong but stagnant. When the physicians declared her infertile, the court had seen it as proof of weakness. The queen had agreed, outwardly. Exile had been mercy, they said. Now mercy returned wearing human colors. Deep within the palace, alarms hummed softly as ancient systems awakened. Servants moved quickly, spreading word of an emergency royal audience. Nobles abandoned feasts and negotiations, curiosity burning brighter than fear. Rumors spread faster than official orders ever could. The exiled princess was coming home, and she was not alone. The royal hangar opened like the mouth of a sleeping god. Light spilled across polished floors as a single ship descended. It was not an imperial design. Its shape was smooth, practical, human, modified but not hidden. The queen watched from above, seated upon her elevated throne. Around her the court filled with whispers and sharp glances. No one spoke openly, but disbelief hung heavy in the air. The ship landed. The ramp lowered. Princess Elira stepped forward. She looked older, stronger. Her posture was no longer that of a sheltered royal, but of someone who had survived without protection. She wore no crown, no jewels, only simple attire and a calm expression. Behind her came the impossible. 3 children walked into the hangar. They were small, perhaps 8 or 9 cycles by human standards. Their skin carried the faint luminous patterns of Aurelian royalty, but their features were softer, more varied. Their eyes shimmered with unfamiliar colors. One clutched the other's hand. The smallest looked around in open wonder. The court gasped. Some nobles recoiled. Others leaned forward, unable to look away. The queen did not move. Her mind refused what her eyes accepted. They carried her blood. She could feel it. A subtle resonance, ancient and undeniable. The royal bond responded to them as it would to any true heir. Her breath caught. Impossible, she cannot have children. Elira stopped at the base of the throne platform and knelt. The children followed, copying her movement instinctively, though no one had taught them the gesture. That was when the queen froze. The bow they made was not common knowledge. It was an old royal sign of respect abandoned centuries ago. Only direct descendants responded to it naturally. The room went silent. Elira raised her head. "Mother," she said, her voice steady, "I have returned under ancient law. I ask for sanctuary and truth." The queen stood slowly. Every movement felt heavy, deliberate. "What you ask for," Seraphil said, "comes at a cost. You bring abominations into my court and expect welcome." The children flinched at the word. Elira's jaw tightened, but she did not rise. "They are not abominations. They are your grandchildren." A wave of outrage swept through the nobles. Voices rose. Accusations filled the air. "Silence," the queen commanded. The chamber obeyed instantly. Seraphil descended the steps until she stood before the children. They looked up at her, not with fear but curiosity. One smiled. Just a little. The queen felt something crack. She had ruled empires, ordered wars, sent entire species into submission. Yet this small human smile unnerved her more than rebellion ever could. "What have you done?" she asked Elira, her voice barely above a whisper. "I lived," Elira replied. "Among humans I learned. They did not see me as broken. They did not see impossibility. They saw me as someone worth saving." The queen looked back at the children. Royal blood, human adaptability, something new, something dangerous. The laws of the empire screamed for their destruction, and yet the future stood breathing before her. The queen straightened. "Take them to holding quarters," she said, "under full protection. No harm will come to them until I decide their fate." Elira exhaled slowly. The children were escorted away, still holding hands. As they disappeared from sight, the queen realized a truth she could not deny. The empire's greatest certainty had just been broken. And nothing would ever be the same again. The holding quarters were deep within the palace, far from the public halls and the watching eyes of nobles. The walls were smooth and white, filled with soft light that adjusted to the mood of its occupants. Guards stood outside every entrance, silent and tense, unsure whether they were protecting the empire from the children or the children from the empire. Princess Elira sat on a low seat, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Across from her, the 3 children explored the room with quiet curiosity. They touched the glowing walls, watched the light shift colors, and whispered to each other in a mix of human words and soft Aurelian tones. The oldest child, a girl with silver-blue eyes, glanced back at her mother. "Mama, is this place safe?" Elira forced a gentle smile. "For now, yes." The youngest, a small boy with faint glowing patterns on his cheeks, tilted his head. "Is the shiny lady angry?" Elira did not answer right away. She looked toward the sealed door, knowing exactly who he meant. "She is surprised," Elira said carefully, "and afraid." The boy frowned. "Why?" Before Elira could respond, the door slid open without sound. Queen Seraphil entered alone. The room seemed to change the moment she stepped inside. The light dimmed slightly, reacting to her presence. The guards remained outside. This was not a meeting meant for witnesses. The children froze, not in fear, but in instinct. They stood straight, shoulders back, as if something deep inside them recognized authority older than memory. The queen noticed. Her expression remained controlled, but her eyes studied every movement, every breath. She circled slowly, like a scientist examining a miracle she did not want to believe. "So," Seraphil said at last, "this is what defiance looks like." Elira rose and placed herself slightly in front of the children. "If you wish to punish someone, punish me." The queen stopped. "You always did that, stand in front of others and call it courage." "I learned it from you," Elira replied. For a moment, silence stretched between them. Then the queen's gaze dropped to the children again. "Names," she said. The oldest girl spoke first, her voice calm. "I am Lyra." The second child, a boy with darker skin and bright eyes, stepped forward. "I am Kale." The youngest waved slightly. "I am Eli." The queen felt it again, that strange pull in her chest. Their voices resonated with something ancient, something royal. "You speak our tongue," Seraphil said to Lyra. Lyra nodded. "Mama taught us and Papa helped." "Papa," the queen repeated slowly. "The human." "Yes," Lyra said simply. "He is kind." Elira watched closely, ready to move if the queen's tone changed. But Seraphil did not raise her voice. Instead, she knelt. The room froze. A queen of the Aurelian Empire did not kneel, ever. She brought herself level with the children, her golden eyes searching their faces. "Do you know what you are?" Kale answered. "We are family." The queen's breath caught, just for a second. "That is not an answer," she said. Lyra tilted her head. "It is to us." Seraphil stood again, turning sharply to Elira. "Explain, slowly, fully, no lies." Elira nodded. "After exile I lived among humans. At first I expected rejection, fear, but they welcomed me. They studied my condition, the one your physicians declared final." The queen's jaw tightened. "You were infertile." "That is what Aurelian science believed," Elira said. Human science did not accept impossible as an answer. She explained how human doctors, geneticists, and researchers worked with patience and care. How they did not try to force Aurelian biology to change, but instead learned how it adapted under different conditions. How emotions, environment, and long-term exposure affected things the Empire never bothered to question. "They treated me like a person," Elira said softly, "not a flaw." The queen turned away, her back straight and rigid. "You broke sacred law," Seraphil said. "You mixed blood. You created something that should not exist." "And yet they do," Elira replied. Seraphil faced her again. "Do you understand what they represent? If word spreads, the empire fractures. The purity doctrine collapses. Our authority, my authority, dies." Lyra spoke again, her voice gentle. "We do not want to hurt anyone." The queen looked at her, really looked. "You already have," Seraphil said quietly, "by existing." Eli stepped forward, holding a small glowing toy the room had created for him. He looked up at the queen. "Are you my grandmother?" The word hit harder than any accusation. The queen did not answer. Instead, she turned and left the room without another word. Outside, the council was already waiting. "They are unstable," one noble said quickly. "Unknown capabilities. They should be eliminated before." "No," the queen said. The word cut through the hall like a blade. The nobles froze. "They remain under protection," Seraphil continued, "until I understand them." The science counselor hesitated. "Your Majesty, permission to conduct tests." The queen's eyes hardened. "Non-invasive only. They are children, not weapons." That alone sent shockwaves through the court. In the following days, the palace changed. The children were moved to a secure research wing designed to feel like a home rather than a prison. Soft gardens, open skies simulated by light fields, and human-style comforts were added at Elira's request. Scientists observed from a distance. What they saw terrified them. The children learned faster than expected. Their minds shifted easily between Aurelian logic and human creativity. Their emotional control was strong yet flexible. Where Aurelians suppressed emotion and humans embraced it fully, the children balanced both. One evening, a predictive war AI was quietly fed their genetic data. It failed, again and again. The machine could not simulate futures involving them. The outcomes branched endlessly, unstable and undefined. The report reached the Queen at dawn. She stared at the data, her reflection faint on the screen. Unpredictable. That word had always meant danger. She returned to the children's quarters alone. This time, she stayed longer. She watched Kale build complex light structures using children's tools meant for simple play. She saw Lyra help Eli calm himself when unfamiliar sounds frightened him, using breathing techniques Aurelian monks practiced centuries ago. "You taught them well," Seraphil said to Elira. Elira nodded. "Humans helped too." The Queen sat. Another impossible act. "When I was young," Seraphil said slowly, "I believed strength came from control, from unchanging rules." She looked at the children. "Now I see something I cannot control." Lyra met her gaze. "That does not mean we are your enemy." The Queen studied her granddaughter's face. "No," she said, "it means you may be something worse." The children went quiet. "A future," Seraphil finished. Outside the palace, rumors spread like fire. Inside, the Queen of the Aurelian Empire faced a truth that shook her more than war ever had. Humanity had not attacked. It had simply changed what was possible, and the Empire stood at the edge of something it could never unsee. The palace felt different after the children arrived. The halls were the same, the guards still stood at attention, and the banners of the Empire still hung from the ceilings. Yet something unseen had shifted, like a quiet crack running through stone that had never broken before. Queen Seraphil stood in the observation chamber, watching the children through a transparent barrier. She had ordered the wall installed herself, clear enough to see, strong enough to remind her this was still containment. Inside the garden space, Lyra sat on the ground with glowing symbols floating around her hands. Kale was nearby, carefully adjusting their shapes while Eli lay on his back, watching artificial clouds drift across the ceiling. They were calm, too calm. The science counselor stood beside the Queen, holding a data slate with shaking hands. "Your Majesty, the latest results confirm it. Their neural activity adapts in real time. They learn faster when emotional connection is present." Seraphil did not look away from the children. "Explain." "They do not suppress emotion like Aurelians," the counselor said, "but they also do not let it overwhelm them like humans sometimes do. They regulate it, naturally." The Queen's fingers curled slightly. "They balance it." Yes. That single word echoed in her mind. Balance was not something the Empire valued. Control was. "What about their physical limits?" Seraphil asked. The counselor hesitated. "We have not found them yet." That answer sent a chill through the room. Later that day, Elira walked beside her mother through one of the palace's oldest corridors. The walls were carved with stories of conquest and unity, of laws that had never bent. "You are afraid," Elira said gently. The Queen did not deny it. "Fear keeps empires alive." "No," Elira replied. "It keeps them frozen." Seraphil stopped walking. "You sound human." Elira met her gaze. "I learned from them. They adapt because they must. They survive because they change. And they destroy themselves just as often," the Queen said. "Yes," Elira admitted. "But they learn from that too." They continued in silence. That evening, the Queen ordered a controlled demonstration. The children were brought into a large training hall, designed to test royal heirs in strategy, focus, and controlled energy use. The room was watched by high-ranking nobles, generals, and scientists. Elira stood at the edge, her heart heavy. The Queen sat on a raised platform. "This is not punishment," she said. "It is understanding." Lyra stepped forward. "What do you want us to do?" Seraphil paused. The child's calm gaze unsettled her again. "Solve the problem presented, nothing more." The floor shifted, forming a glowing maze of moving walls and energy barriers. It was designed to confuse, overwhelm, and pressure the mind. Adult Aurelians often failed it. The children exchanged looks. Kale smiled. Together, Lyra nodded. Together. They entered the maze. At first they moved slowly, observing. Eli stayed close, his small hand gripping Lyra's sleeve. When the walls shifted suddenly, Kale reacted instantly, pulling Eli aside before the path closed. They spoke softly to each other, mixing logic and feeling, planning and instinct. Left feels wrong, Eli said at one point. Kale paused. Why? I don't know, Eli replied. Just feels tight. Lyra studied the energy flow. He's right. They changed direction. Moments later, the path they avoided collapsed entirely. Murmurs spread through the audience. The maze grew more aggressive. Energy pulses struck without warning. Pressure increased. The air itself seemed to push against them. Eli stumbled. Before anyone could react, Lyra reached out, her hand glowing faintly. The energy around them softened, reshaping itself. The system alarms flared. That's not possible, a scientist whispered. They're not overpowering the field, they're communicating with it. The children reached the center of the maze and stopped. We're done, Kale said. The room fell silent. The queen stood. End the test, she ordered. As the maze dissolved, the children walked out unharmed. Eli waved at the nobles. A few did not wave back. That night the queen could not rest. She reviewed reports, simulations, projections. Every model involving the children ended the same way: collapse of old structures, rise of something new. Not violent, not chaotic. Just different. She summoned Elira again. You knew this would happen, Seraphil said. Elira nodded slowly. I hoped it would. You brought change into my empire, the queen said. Change that cannot be controlled. Elira's voice was calm. Humans never try to control the future, they prepare for it. The queen turned away. The council is divided. Some demand exile, others demand elimination. And you? Elira asked. Seraphil did not answer. The next day the empire received an external transmission. A human diplomatic vessel had arrived at the edge of Aurelian space. The message was simple. They knew. The queen stood before the council as the transmission played. A human representative spoke with respect, not fear. We come peacefully, the human said. We are aware of the children's presence. They are not weapons, they are family, and we will not abandon them. Outrage erupted instantly. They dare make demands, a noble shouted. They threaten us with sentiment, another sneered. The queen raised her hand. Silence fell. They do not threaten, Seraphil said. They trust. That unsettled the room more than anger ever could. The queen ordered the human envoy allowed to land, but under strict observation. When the human representative finally stood before her, Seraphil studied him closely. He was unarmed, calm, open. You risk much by coming here, she said. He nodded. Humans do that. You created something that destabilizes my empire, the queen said. We created family, the human replied. The rest is choice. Later, Seraphil watched the children greet the human with joy. Eli ran forward laughing, and the man lifted him easily, spinning him in the air. No fear, no hesitation. The queen felt something unfamiliar tighten in her chest. Connection. That night unrest began in the outer systems. Not rebellion, questions. Citizens demanded answers. Scholars challenged old laws. Young nobles whispered about possibility instead of purity. The empire trembled not from attack but from thought. Seraphil stood alone on the palace balcony, staring at the stars. She had built her reign on certainty. Now 3 small lives had undone it. Behind her, footsteps approached. Lyra stood there, hands folded, respectful but unafraid. Grandmother, the queen turned slowly. You should be sleeping, Lyra smiled. I was thinking. About what? About the future, Lyra said. You're afraid of it. Seraphil looked away. The future has never asked permission before. Lyra stepped closer. We're not here to replace you. Then why are you here? The queen asked. Lyra thought for a moment. To show that strength can grow. The queen said nothing. For the first time in her long rule, she realized the greatest threat to the empire was not humanity or hybrids or rebellion. It was the idea that the empire could become something better. And once an idea like that existed, no force in the galaxy could erase it. The empire did not sleep that night. Across the capital world, signals moved faster than light, carrying arguments, fears, and hopes into every level of society. The arrival of the human envoy and the existence of the hybrid children were no longer secrets. The Queen had delayed the official announcement, but the truth had escaped containment. Questions spread. If the princess could have children, then the law declaring her broken was wrong. If hybrids could exist, then purity was not absolute. If humans could do what Aurelian science could not, then the empire was not perfect. That thought frightened many. In the High Council chamber, the mood was tense. Nobles stood in small groups, voices sharp and low. Generals watched the exits. Scientists clutched data slates as if facts alone could protect them. Queen Seraphil entered last. The room fell silent. "We can no longer delay," she said. "Speak." A senior noble stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the people are restless. Outer systems demand explanation. If we do not act decisively, this situation will weaken our rule." "Say what you mean," the Queen replied. The noble hesitated, then straightened. "The children must be removed, permanently." Murmurs of agreement followed. "They are not responsible," another voice argued. "They did not choose their birth." "They are symbols," the first noble snapped, "and symbols can destroy empires." The Queen listened, her expression unreadable. "They are also my blood," she said at last. That stopped the room. "Blood does not stand above law," the noble replied carefully. "No," Seraphil agreed, "but law must serve survival." She turned to the generals. "What is the military assessment?" A general stepped forward. "If the children are harmed, human response is uncertain. They have not threatened us, but their history shows they do not abandon their own." "And if we protect the children?" the Queen asked. "Then internal unrest increases," the general said. "Traditionalist factions may act on their own." That answer lingered in the air. That same hour, far below the palace, a group of nobles met in secret. They called themselves the Preservation Circle. Their goal was simple: save the empire from change. "The Queen hesitates," one whispered. "That is weakness." "She is blinded by blood," another replied. "Then we act without her." The plan was quiet, precise, and ruthless. An accident during a scheduled transfer. No witnesses, no blame. By dawn, the problem would be gone. Back in the secure wing, Elira felt something was wrong. She stood near the window, watching artificial stars drift across the ceiling. The children were asleep, curled together on soft cushions. Their breathing was slow and steady. Too steady. She moved closer, placing a hand on Lyra's shoulder. The girl stirred, eyes opening instantly. "Mama," Lyra whispered. "Stay awake," Elira said softly. "Something feels off." Lyra nodded and gently shook Kale and Eli. Moments later, the lights flickered. Elira's heart raced. The door did not open with its usual sound. Instead, the panel slid aside in silence. 3 guards stepped in. Not royal guard. Their armor bore no crest. "Who are you?" Elira demanded, stepping in front of the children. "For the Empire," one said. Before Elira could react, the air shifted. The children felt it first. Eli gasped, clutching his head. "Mama, it hurts." Lyra's eyes glowed brighter than ever before. "They're trying to lock the room." Kale stepped forward, fear giving way to focus. "Don't touch her." The guards raised their weapons, and then everything went wrong. The lights shattered into fragments of energy, not exploding but bending, reshaping. The room's walls shimmered as if reality itself had softened. The guards froze, not by force but by confusion. "What did you do?" one shouted. "We didn't do anything," Lyra said. "We just asked it to stop." The containment field collapsed. Alarms screamed across the palace. Queen Seraphil felt it immediately. She was already moving before the reports reached her. "Lock down the palace," she ordered. Now. In the secure wing, Elira pulled the children close. Listen to me. Do not run. Do not attack. Stay with me. But they're scared, Eli whispered. So am I, Elira said. That's why we stay together. Royal guards flooded the corridor moments later, weapons raised. They found the unauthorized guards unconscious, their armor twisted as if gently folded. The queen arrived seconds after. Her gaze took in the scene in an instant. Who ordered this? She demanded. No one answered, but fear was answer enough. She turned to the children. Are you harmed? Kale shook his head. They wanted to make us go away. The queen's jaw tightened. So, she said softly, the Empire chooses murder. She straightened, her voice carrying authority older than any law. Find the ones responsible. Strip them of title, command, and protection. The council chamber erupted later that day. You cannot punish nobles without trial, one shouted. They attempted to kill royal blood, Seraphil replied coldly. That is trial enough. They acted for the good of the empire. They acted out of fear, the queen said, and fear makes poor rulers. Outside the chamber, crowds gathered. Word of the attempted attack spread quickly. Sympathy shifted. Citizens who had feared the children now feared those willing to harm them. The narrative changed. That evening, the queen stood before the people for the first time since the crisis began. Her image filled screens across the world. These children exist, she said plainly. They are part of our empire's story now. We can respond with violence or with strength. She paused. Strength is not refusal to change, it is the courage to survive it. The reaction was not uniform. Some cheered, some protested. But the silence that followed was thoughtful, not hostile. Later, in private, the queen sat with the children. Lyra looked at her carefully. They wanted us gone. Yes, Seraphil said, because you frightened them. Eli frowned. We don't want to hurt anyone. I know, the queen replied. Kale studied her. Will they try again? The queen did not lie. Some may. Lyra nodded. Then we should help. Help? Seraphil asked. Teach, Lyra said. Show them we're not the end. The queen looked at her granddaughter, truly looked at her, and in that moment she made a decision that would echo across the galaxy. You will no longer be hidden, Seraphil said. You will be seen. Elira's breath caught. Mother, the Empire tried secrecy, the queen said. It failed. We will face this openly. In the days that followed, the children appeared publicly, carefully, safely. Not as symbols of power, but as living proof of possibility. They spoke simply. Asked questions, laughed, and something unexpected happened. The people responded, not all, but enough. Students demanded reform. Scientists questioned old limits. Even some nobles began to wonder if survival required more than tradition. The preservation circle collapsed under investigation, but the threat was not gone. Far beyond the empire's borders, other powers watched. Hybrid children, human influence, a rigid empire beginning to bend. To some, this was hope. To others, it was opportunity. Queen Seraphil stood once more on her balcony, the children beside her, staring into the stars. Change had arrived, and now the galaxy was paying attention. The galaxy did not react with silence. News of the hybrid children spread beyond the Aurelian Empire faster than any fleet. Messages crossed borders, councils met. Old enemies paused their conflicts, not out of peace but curiosity. Something new had appeared, something that should not exist. Queen Seraphil understood this better than anyone. She stood in the grand hall, alone, watching a star map slowly rotate in the air. Small lights marked nearby empires. More lights appeared every hour, showing fleets repositioning, diplomats requesting entry, observers pretending not to spy. Change always drew attention. Behind her, soft footsteps approached. Elira stopped a respectful distance away. The children are with the human envoy, she said. They're asking questions again. Seraphil almost smiled. Almost. They never stop, the queen replied. No, Elira said. They want to understand everything. The queen turned. That may be the most dangerous trait of all. That same day, the first foreign delegation arrived. They were not human. Tall, sharp-featured, wrapped in ceremonial armor, they represented an empire that had once challenged Aurelian power and failed. Their leader bowed just enough to show respect, not submission. "We request confirmation," the delegate said. "Are the reports true? Hybrid heirs?" "Human-altered bloodlines," Seraphiel did not hesitate. "They are true." A murmur passed through the delegation. "This violates long-held biological limits," the delegate said. "If such blending is possible, it changes everything." "Yes," the Queen replied, "it does." "What is your intention?" the delegate asked. Seraphiel met his gaze. "Survival." The delegate studied her, then bowed deeper this time. "Then we will be watching." They all would. In the days that followed, pressure mounted from every side. Some empires offered alliances. Others issued warnings hidden behind polite language. A few began military exercises near shared borders. Inside the empire, the reaction was just as divided. Traditionalists held protests, demanding the return of purity laws. Reformists gathered in universities and public squares, arguing that the children proved stagnation was the real threat. And at the center of it, all were three children who still argued over toys and bedtime. One evening, Lyra sat beside her grandmother in the palace garden. Artificial stars shimmered above them. "Why do they all stare at us?" Lyra asked. Seraphiel considered the question carefully. "Because you remind them that their beliefs may be wrong." Lyra frowned. "Is being wrong so bad?" "For rulers," the Queen said, "it can feel like death." Kale joined them, his expression thoughtful. "Papa says humans argue all the time, but they keep going." "That is true," Seraphiel said. Eli ran across the garden, laughing, chasing a floating light. He tripped, then stood again, unbothered. The Queen watched him closely. Fall. Rise, continue. That was not the Aurelian way. It was now. The final crisis came without warning. An unknown fleet entered imperial space, not openly hostile but armed. Their message was short and cold. The children must be surrendered for universal study. The council panicked. "They mean to take them apart," one scientist said. "This is why they should never have been revealed," a noble argued. The human envoy stood calmly among them. "You will not hand them over." "And if we refuse?" a general asked. "Then humanity stands with you," the envoy said simply. The room went quiet. Seraphiel rose. "No," she said. "This is not humanity's fight alone." She activated a wide broadcast. The galaxy watched as the Queen of the Aurelian Empire spoke. "These children are citizens of my empire," she said. "They are family. Any attempt to claim them as objects will be treated as an act of aggression." The unknown fleet did not retreat. Instead, they advanced. Sirens echoed through the capital, fleets mobilized. War stood one decision away. In the command chamber, Lyra watched the star map, her small hands clenched. "They're scared," she said softly. "Yes," Seraphiel replied, "and fear makes people cruel." Kale looked up. "Can we help?" The generals turned sharply. "Absolutely not." But the Queen raised her hand. "Let them speak." Lyra took a breath. "We don't want war, not for us." Eli nodded. "Too loud." Kale stepped closer to the map. "If they're afraid of change, show them something else." "What?" Seraphiel asked. Kale pointed to the fleet markers. "Connection." Before anyone could stop them, the children reached out, not with force, not with energy, but with something quieter. Understanding. Across the invading fleet, systems flickered, not failing but opening. Communication channels activated that had been locked for centuries. Images appeared on screens. Children standing calmly, not hiding, not attacking. Lyra spoke, her voice carried across space. "We are not weapons. We are not prizes. We are what happens when people choose to care instead of fear." Silence followed. Long seconds passed. Then slowly the hostile fleet powered down its weapons. A single message returned. "We did not expect this." No one had. The crisis ended without a shot fired. The galaxy exhaled. In the weeks that followed, treaties were rewritten. Research was shared instead of hoarded. Old laws were reviewed, not erased, but questioned. The empire did not fall. It evolved. One morning, Queen Seraphil stood in the throne chamber with the children before her. Nobles, citizens, and foreign observers filled the hall. "By ancient right and new understanding," she declared, "I recognize Lyra, Kale, and Eli as heirs of the Aurelian line." The hall erupted not in outrage but in awe. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. The children bowed, the same ancient gesture that had frozen the queen on the first day. Later, as the palace lights dimmed, Seraphil stood once more on the balcony. The stars looked the same. She was not. She felt Lyra's hand slip into hers. "Are you still afraid?" Lyra asked. Seraphil thought of wars avoided, futures opened, and an empire that had learned to bend without breaking. "Yes," she said honestly. Lyra smiled. "That's okay, we are two sometimes." The queen looked down at her grandchildren, hybrid, impossible, hopeful. For the first time in her long reign, she did not see the end of an empire. She saw its beginning.